What's up guys, Asian here again with another theory crafting video, and for today we're going to be exploring the difference between Inferno and Lightning staves on your front bar for a Magicka Sorcerer. Now I already did a video on this previously, however that was only one parse for each stave, so now we're doing multiple parses so we can get a better idea of which staff is actually going to be better, only for magsorcs though, so this doesn't apply to any other Magicka class really, and this is just because magsorcs have an passive in their storm calling line that increases the amount of shock damage they deal by 5%. So the two camps here for the Inferno versus the Lightning Staff is the Inferno Staff. You get the extra boost from, let me see here, Ancient Knowledge, which increases your damage done by single target abilities by 8%. So most of your front bar abilities are going to be considered single target abilities. So if you are using my build, for instance, and you have Crystal Frags, Crushing Shock, and Curse on your front bar, those all count towards the Ancient Knowledge for single target abilities. So you'll get an extra 8% damage from all three of these abilities on your front bar, and if you're using Shooting Star, you also get the additional 8% from the initial impact from the Shooting Star, although you don't get any additional damage from the that flame damage tick after the initial impact there. So that's kind of the argument for using the Inferno Staff, and another reason why people are saying Inferno Staff is better is because it improves the proc chance for Lambrus because you have an additional source of flame damage. Now some people are saying, oh well, you can just use a flame damage enchant on your Lightning Staff, and then but there is kind of a downside there that if you do use a flame enchant to get an additional flame damage source for Lambrus procs, that you're missing out on the concussed uptime. So that's kind of the downside of using the flame enchant, and the way the current meta is currently set up with the emphasis on maintaining off-balance uptime and getting that off-balance uptime up, you're going to want to have fairly high concussed uptime. So while it is possible to use a flame enchant, I would probably just stick with a shock enchant because that's going to provide greater group utility for the group. However, if you do have 2 or 3 people running asylum staves, whether perfect or imperfect asylum staves, you can also use the shock damage. You can use the flame damage enchant because those asylum staves will basically give you the concussed uptime that the shock damage enchants would normally pull. So that's kind of the complicated argument for the Inferno Staff versus the Lightning Staff. Now for the Lightning Staff, obviously the main argument comes from the passive that you get, which increases your shock damage by 5%. So the argument there is you're getting more damage out of your Light Weaves because you have that extra 5% shock damage. But you do lose out on the 8% extra damage from Ancient Knowledge on your front bar because typically none of your front bar abilities are considered area of effect abilities, so they don't get an extra 8% damage there. So that's kind of the two schools of thought here. The fact that the Inferno Staff boosts your damage from Ancient Knowledge, plus you get an extra source of flame damage for Lambrus procs, and then the Lightning Staff is you get that extra passive for 5% shock damage, but you do lose out on the Ancient Knowledge, and if you do want the additional fire damage source for Lambrus procs, you'd have to use a flame damage enchant, which reduces your concussed uptime if you don't have enough asylum staves in the group. So that's kind of the argument for both of them, so we're just going to be testing both of them out here. Everything's going to remain exactly the same, including traits and enchants. We're going to be sticking with a shock damage enchant. We're going to be using Moondancer, 4-piece Moondancer with 5-piece Julianos and 2-piece Lambrus here, 5-1-1 obviously. Nirnho and Maelstrom Lightning Staff with the weapon damage enchant. We're just going to be swapping this out for a Moondancer Lightning Staff, exact same trait, exact same enchant. So the only thing we're going to be changing is whether we're getting the Inferno Light Attack Weave or the Lightning Light Attack Weave. So I've already done a couple of parses, so I'll pull up that spreadsheet and we'll be able to get a good idea of how these two fare against each other. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start the parses here. Something else that I've also noticed, and this might just be something subjective, is that I feel like the light weaving on the Inferno bar is a little bit smoother compared to the lightning bar on the front bar. Again, that might just be something subjective. I'm very used to using an Inferno staff on my front bar on my magsorc, so that just might be a result of me being a lot more used to the Inferno staff on the front bar. So your mileage may vary. I just find it a little bit more awkward with the lightning staff front bar in terms of weaving. Did have a little bit of a hiccup there, which is a little bit weird. That shouldn't affect the parts too much. Alright, so that was our Inferno staff. So now we're just going to build our ultimate back up and redo that test again with a lightning staff. So before I show you guys the spreadsheet, I will go over the two combat metrics parses for both of them, and we're going to see kind of the argument for both sides and kind of see whether or not they hold any water. Now it will be a little bit more difficult to determine light weaving, just because it doesn't differentiate in combat metrics what part of your, if you have two lightning staves, which percentage comes from your front bar, which percentage comes from your back bar. So that's the only part that's going to be a little bit tricky to kind of tease apart there. Oops. That was a bit of a bad start, so we're just going to get our ultimate back up and redo that again. So we're just going to get our ultimate back up. We had a bit of a false start there, my finger slipped and I hit Mount Aegis instead of Haunting Curse. We're just going to get our ultimate up, then I'll reset the dummy. That should be enough to get us up to our ultimate backup. And we'll just reset the dummy and do that all over again. So that was my bad. I messed up when I shouldn't have. Alright, there we go. So let's do this. Let's try this again. Hopefully I won't fat finger the keys. So that was our lightning staff parse. So real quick, our lightning staff parse here looks like it is about 33.4k. I'm just going to add this into the spreadsheet here. 3418. Oops, wrong one. 33,418. There we go. And our Inferno staff parse, let's go back here, was 32. 32,929. Oh, hold on. I'm on the wrong spreadsheet. Here it is. 32,929. And what was the other one? 33,418. Alright, so let's go take a look quickly at what people are saying. So we're looking at light attacks here. Like I said, it's going to be difficult because Comet Metrics doesn't divide between which one comes from your front and back bar. But we're just going to take a look at our average here, 7787 compared to 7,000. So we're getting almost 800 more on average from our lightning light attacks, just from swapping to a lightning front bar. Let's take a look at our Lambris procs though. With the Inferno staff, we're getting 661 out of Lambris. We got a couple of procs here. We got 36. Let me see if I can find it here. I don't know if it's... Okay, so it's not anywhere here, so we can only just take a look at this. So 2%. Look here, 587. So it doesn't look like we're losing that much in terms of Lambris procs. Lightning proc here is 1,000 compared to... Let's see, another 1,000. So we're not actually gaining too much from Lambris. Burning is another thing that we should consider because we're using an Inferno staff, but I don't think that should change too much because, yeah, we're getting a little bit more out of burning, but not too much. Burning doesn't really make up that much of our DPS to begin with. Let's take a look at Crushing Shock here. So we're averaging about 850, so that's that. Take a look here. So Crushing Shock does get a nice boost in DPS. So does Crystal Frags, 244 compared to... Oh, Crystal Frags here actually did more damage here. Let's see, 7 out of 15 were crits. 5 out of 10 were crits, so this could be why, because we got less out of Crystal Frag procs. That could be why it's a little bit lesser there in terms of DPS. Take a look at our average, 22.4 compared to... Yeah, 21, so that's kind of what's explaining it. Crystal Frags is hitting harder with the Inferno staff. Haunting Curse is the other one, 17.6 compared to 19. So we're seeing, again, on our front bar, we're seeing a lot higher DPS average hits coming out compared to on our when we have a lightning front bar. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. So now we're just going to go swap over to our spreadsheet. There we go. So these are our parses. Inferno staff is on the left side. Lightning staff is on the right side. We have 6 parses for each. Here are the averages, and here's the standard deviations. So we can see there's about a 0.6% difference between Inferno and Lightning, with the higher number going to Lightning. You're seeing about 200 additional DPS there. So it does seem like the extra shock damage that you're getting from the Swark passive is actually outweighing the Ancient Knowledge passive boost. But something to keep in mind here is that the spread for the Inferno staff is smaller than that of the Lightning staff. Now this could just be due to the RNG factor of crit chances, but there could be something else there. That is something to keep in mind though. But the thing is that the difference is only 0.6%. It's not that big. It's a 200 DPS difference there. So it's not really going to change your DPS too much whether you go with Inferno or Lightning staff. The big thing that's going to kind of determine which one's going to be better is how well you light weave. The worse your light weave is, the less effective your VMA backbar is going to be, especially on the Inferno staff, since that's kind of a main source of flame damage. You're going to see lower Lambris proc chances because you're not weaving as well. So that's something to take into consideration as well when you are deciding between Inferno and Lightning. But you can really pick whichever one you want. Another advantage of having Lightning front is you can heavy attack on your front bar without having to swap to your back bar. But generally when I heavy attack on my Sorc, I usually just do it on my back bar anyways because I lay my dots and then heavy attack. But that's something that not everybody does, so that's another factor that you're going to want to consider when you're trying to decide between Inferno and Lightning. So my personal recommendation is just go whichever staff you happen to get first. Lightning or Inferno, both of them seem to be pulling pretty similar DPS. Just the Lightning is pulling just very slightly ahead, but it's not really enough for a to make it a significant difference there. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys found it informative, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.